You wake in a room you've never seen before, yet you know it by scent. The furniture is carved from memory, the walls made of decisions you never made. A door stands ajar, but behind it is not freedom, only another version of the same room. You've tried changing the curtains, switching the lights, even repainting the silence. Still, the hunger hums beneath it all. Not for food, not for love, for something you can never name, only chase. You remember smiling once, don't you? But was it yours? Or borrowed from someone else's reflection? There's a clock here, ticking not with time, but with longing. And every tick is a promise, just a little more, and you'll feel it. But you never do. Because every joy is laced with decay, and every answer hides another question. You keep walking forward because standing still feels like drowning. Yet what if the path was the illusion and the ache, the only real thing? Come closer. The sugar you lick has a bitter aftertaste. But you knew that, didn't you? You just kept pretending not to notice. You want to be happy. That is your first mistake. You do not want truth, nor silence, nor even freedom. You want a sensation that deceives you into forgetting the world's emptiness. You dress this craving in nobler names: peace, purpose, connection. But behind every name is the same primal twitch, the animal snarl beneath the velvet glove. You are not pursuing joy, you are fleeing pain. And what you call happiness is just a well-polished distraction, a sugar cube balanced delicately on the edge of a blade. You lick it without looking, and wonder why your mouth keeps bleeding. No one told you the truth, because no one wanted to know it. That life, when stripped of illusion, is not a gift, but a burden. That to exist is to suffer, not occasionally, but constantly, in flickers and waves, in silence and scream. That what you call meaning is a fever dream conjured by a desperate will. This will blind, seething, relentless. It does not want you to be happy. It only wants to continue, to reproduce itself. It hijacks your body, wears your name, and sends you chasing shadows that vanish the moment they touch your skin. You buy, you taste, you love, you achieve, but the moment stretches and cracks. The perfume fades, the food turns to ash, the lover becomes a mirror, and the success that once thrilled you now yawns with the same emptiness you carried all along. So you chase again, the next thrill, the next promise. You are not alive, you are hunted by your own longing. Your life is not a path, but a loop. You are not progressing, you are circling the same wound, and yet you smile. You say you are fine, you post your meals, your vacations, your achievements, but beneath it all, there is a question you do not dare ask. If happiness is so real, why does it need constant proof? Why does it vanish when the music stops, when the phone dies, when the room falls silent? Because it was never real. It was only the pause between two aches, the inhale before the scream, the surface above a sea of restless desire. You think you are choosing, but you are chosen by the will, by biology, by a force older than thought. You are its puppet, painted with dreams. It uses you to multiply itself. It puts you in love so you'll reproduce. It gives you ambition so you'll labor. It invents joy so you'll endure the chain. And when you fall to your knees, tired, broken, done it whispers. You just didn't try hard enough, and you rise again. You envy those who seem content, but you do not see the teeth behind their smiles. You do not hear the sob in their silence. You do not feel the panic in their sleep. They are not happy. They are distracted. You are not failing to be happy. You are failing to forget. That is the difference. Happiness is not a state, it is a lie told beautifully, long enough to be believed. You imagine there is a threshold, a moment, an achievement, a possession where the ache will stop. But have you ever reached it? And when you did it last, or did it mutate, like every illusion, into hunger again? The new phone becomes ordinary, the partner becomes flawed, the victory becomes irrelevant, the sugar melts, the razor remains, and you bleed in silence, wondering what went wrong. But nothing went wrong. This is the design. This is the mechanism. You think suffering is a sign of error, but suffering is the rule. It is not a punishment, it is the cost of existing. To be conscious is to ache, not sometimes, always. Even your pleasure is pain waiting to happen, because to enjoy something is to fear its loss. Every embrace already contains its end. Every laugh already echoes with tomorrow's silence. Every love is a funeral in disguise, and still you hope. That is the final cruelty. The will implants in you the hope of escape, not to liberate you, but to keep you moving. It makes you believe the next book, the next lover, the next job will be the one. It won't. But you believe anyway, because to stop believing would reveal the truth that there is no escape, only awakening. And awakening is not bliss, it is clarity, cold, merciless, and irreversible. Look at the animals. They suffer, but they do not curse their fate. You, however, ask why. You invent gods to explain the pain, therapists to soothe it, religions to promise an end. But none of it changes the structure. The wheel keeps turning. The will keeps biting its tail. You keep chasing the sugar. You say you want to live fully, but what you mean is you want to feel pleasure without pain. You want love without loss, meaning without effort, peace without surrender. And this, above all, is the grandest illusion, because there is no full life. There is only a life clawed from the teeth of emptiness. A life where every joy carries its own ending, every sunbeam its shadow, every breath its decay. You are not being punished, you are being used by a force you did not choose, cannot name, and will never satisfy. It does not care about your dreams, it does not care about your peace. It only wants to go on, and it will, even as you cry. Even as you starve, even as you whisper just one more try. And so you keep going, you keep building your palace on sand, you keep painting your cage in gold. You call it progress, you call it growth, you call it happiness. But deep down, you feel it, the dull ache in your spine, the hollowness behind your smile, the whisper in the mirror that says, this isn't it. It never was. You are not broken. You are awakening. And that, perhaps, is worse. Because now, you can no longer pretend that the sugar is enough. You can no longer ignore the blade beneath your tongue. You feel it, and still you swallow. Because what else is there? The will does not stop. It does not care that you know. It only shifts form, makes new disguises, new dreams, and still you chase. Not because you believe, but because belief is easier than stillness. Because chasing hurts less than silence. You tell yourself just a little more, but each step forward is a circle. Each door opens to the same room, each pleasure a memory you already regret. You are not ascending, you are digging. You are not healing, you are forgetting. And beneath it all, the question rises again. Not a question of how to live, but why to live. And if you listen closely, The silence after that question is the only honest sound you've ever heard. You sit at a table that never empties, surrounded by plates filled with everything you thought would satisfy you. The feast is glorious jeweled goblets of desire, golden platters of love, roasted ambitions carved with silver blades. But every bite you take turns to vapor in your mouth. You chew memory, you swallow absence, you lift your glass, and it's always empty just after the first sip. And still, you stay, because the table is set again and again, because the hunger remains, because the illusion is beautiful, even when you know it lies. You are haunted not by ghosts of the dead, but by ghosts of what you never had the life you imagined, the person you should have been, the joy you thought would come. These phantoms sit beside you. They dress in your forgotten dreams. They smile like old friends and vanish the moment you reach for them. You dine with these ghosts daily. You feed them your time. You feed them your breath. And they give you nothing in return but hunger shaped like hope. The world teaches you to pursue, to want, to strive, to become. It never teaches you to question the feast, because the world itself is built on want. Without desire, it collapses. The cities would grow quiet, the markets would decay, the lovers would separate, the gods would fade. So it tells you to want more, be more, buy more. And you obey because to stop wanting would make you a heretic in the religion of pleasure. But what is it you actually want? You've forgotten, because the wanting itself has become the point. You want to want. The object shifts, but the ache remains constant. Today it is love, tomorrow power, the next day peace. But every object is just a new vessel for the same emptiness. You do not love the things you love, the feeling of hope they give you before they disappoint you. And when they do disappoint, you do not leave the feast. You blame yourself. You think I picked the wrong dish. I should have tried harder, waited longer, chosen better. So you ask for another serving. You move seats. You repaint the ghosts. And the cycle begins again. You are not fooled because you are stupid. You are fooled because you are starving. And when one is starving, even illusions taste like truth. You speak of freedom, of self-expression, of becoming your highest self. But every act is a negotiation with your own hunger. Even your noblest desires are twisted by this invisible need to be admired, to be validated, to be chosen. You offer yourself in beautiful language, in poetic sacrifice. But at the root of it all is this: feed me, make me feel real, prove I matter. And no one ever can, not for long, because everyone is starving. Everyone is gnawing on their own ghost. You think you're evolving, but you are refining your addiction. You dress your cravings in more sophisticated costumes. You say you want wisdom, but really you want relief. You say you seek truth, but truly you seek comfort. You want beauty, but only because it distracts from the ugliness inside. You do not seek the flame, you seek the warmth, and flee the burn. And so, you never know fire, only its flickers. You live your life near the glow, never inside it. Look at your patterns, the people you chase, the jobs you accept, the things you consume. What thread runs through them? It is not meaning, it is not growth, it is compulsion. The quiet panic that rises in stillness, the dread of an empty afternoon, the fear of being alone in your own mind. So you turn on a screen, you scroll, you fill your plate again. You try not to taste the nothing. You believe you are choosing, but the ghosts choose for you. The ghost of childhood rejection picks your lovers. The ghost of parental disappointment whispers which goals are worthy. The ghost of unspoken fears shapes your silence. You are not oneself, you are a banquet of shadows wearing your face. You don't need more choices, you need an exorcism. But the ghosts are clever. They speak with your voice. They dream with your eyes. They never call themselves ghosts. And so, you dance, you laugh, you cry. You tell yourself this time, it's different, but it never is, because the structure never changes. You are always at the table, you are always eating wind, you call it love. It's survival, you call it happiness, it's anesthesia, you call it life, it's a well-decorated hunger. There is no meal that satisfies the will. Feed it once, and it returns doubled. Feed it again, and it devours your peace. This is not metaphor. It is the structure of being. The will to live is not a desire, it is a tyranny. You do not control it. You are its servant. And everything you call progress is merely its expansion. You want to matter, but what is that? Except the will trying to immortalize itself. You want to be remembered. But remembered by who? Other echoes, other shadows. The hunger dreams of legacy because it knows it cannot last. It wants to write its name in stone because it fears dust. You call that purpose. I call it panic dressed in gold. Even your goodness is infected. You help others not out of purity, but because it momentarily quiets your own ache. It makes you feel useful. It makes you feel seen. But the moment passes, and you return hungry again. You forgive not to heal, but to escape. You meditate not to awaken, but to numb. The feast adapts. The ghosts evolve. And still, you are not full. You long for intimacy. But what you seek is not another person. It is a mirror that reflects you without distortion, and no one can do that. So you fall in love with ghosts again. The idea of them, the fantasy, the version that lives in your head, not their reality. You are not betrayed by others. You are betrayed by your own projections. But you keep projecting because the silence without them is unbearable. You fear death, but not because you love life. You fear it because it means the feast ends. The hunger will stop. Yes, but so will the chase, and the chase has become your identity. If the ghosts disappear, who are you if the ache fades? What remains if the feast vanishes? Where do you go? You don't want answers, you want escape routes. That's why you never linger in silence. That's why you fill your calendar. That's why you believe the next book, next plan, next awakening will save you. But nothing saves you. Nothing ever did. You've just learned how to keep the illusion intact longer and longer, thinner and thinner, until it shreds quietly, and you pretend not to notice. There is no feast, only the appearance of one. No guests, only reflections. No nourishment, only theater. And yet, you dress the table every morning. You smile at the ghosts. You eat your hunger and call it contentment, because to admit otherwise would undo everything, and you suspect in some buried part of you that maybe that undoing is the only honest thing left. You think the bars are outside, a job, a country, a relationship, a childhood wound. You think if you escape this one thing, this one condition, you will be free. But the cage is not built of circumstance. The cage is built of desire. Wanting is the architect. Craving is the iron. And you are both prisoner and jailer, rattling the bars you forged yourself, screaming for a key that is made of the same material as the lock. You say you are searching for freedom, but every step you take is pulled by wanting, and wanting cannot deliver freedom. Wanting only expands the walls. Look closely. Everything you do is soaked in wanting. Every kindness, a bid for significance. Every ambition, a cry to be seen. Even your silence is bargaining. Even your renunciation is performance. You fast and desire purity. You detach and desire pride in your detachment. You do not want peace. You want the feeling of having found peace, which is another form of wanting, more insidious, more noble, more deceiving. It wears white robes, but its hunger is the same. The cage smiles and you call it enlightenment. You think you are choosing your desires. But they arrived long before you did, before you had words, before you knew yourself. They planted themselves like seeds in your marrow, watered by the gaze of your mother, the indifference of your father, the ache of being alive too soon. You do not want what you want. You are only responding to ancient shadows that move through you like wind through hollow statues. They speak through your voice. They choose your objects of devotion, and you call it selfhood. But there is no self in the wanting. There is only compulsion, ritual, performance. You think this will complete me, but every time the thing arrives, you are not completed. You are exposed. The hollowness opens wider. The joy is thin, like cheap fabric stretched over a wound. And soon it tears, and you panic, and you seek again. And the cycle continues. You are not addicted to the object. You are addicted to the hope the object momentarily awakens. That fleeting tremble, maybe this time, but it is never this time. It is never any time. You say, but I must desire. Without desire, how can I move? And that is the sickness. The belief that to exist is to hunger. That without the ache, you are nothing. You fear the absence of desire because it feels like death. You do not know how to live without craving because you have never tried. You mistake stillness for apathy, silence for failure, emptiness for lack. But what if the cage isn't there to be escaped, but to be seen, not broken, not destroyed, but understood for what it is? The will wants endlessly. It creates desires faster than you can name them. When one is fed, 3 more are born, like a hydra, like a curse. The more you pursue, the more it tightens. The more you try to fulfill it, the more it proves its power over you. You cannot defeat it through conquest. You cannot silence it through pleasure. You must see it, naked, unadorned, in its full absurdity. The will is a snake devouring its own tail, convinced it's chasing salvation. There is no final satisfaction. That is the cruel secret. No pleasure that stays. No love that does not flicker. No meaning that does not rot in time. Even beauty, which seems eternal, fades when your gaze lingers too long. Everything you touch crumbles not because the world is broken, but because the will never lets you hold anything. It makes you grasp and then pulls away. It makes you dream and then wakes you at the best part. It keeps you moving, always moving, toward a door that never opens. And still, you resist this truth. You cling to the myth of arrival, that one day you'll have enough, be enough, feel enough. But that day does not exist, because the structure of desire is based on lack. The cage needs you to feel incomplete. The moment you feel whole, the cage dissolves. So it will do anything to prevent that. It will whisper insecurities, inflame comparisons, bait you with new futures. It will steal the present from your hands, distract you with imaginary tomorrows. Even your suffering becomes sacred to the will. You begin to need it because it defines you, because it gives you something to fix, to chase, to become without it? Who are you? Just a breathing animal, staring at a sky that no longer speaks in symbols. That terror of emptiness without narrative is what keeps you running. But the running is the trap. The becoming is the prison. The story is the lie. And so you ask then, what, if not desire? What do I have? And that is the moment the will grows silent, because it has no answer. It cannot function in stillness. It cannot survive a life without reaching. It cannot speak the language of now. It needs past and future. It needs a you that is not yet here. That's why it hates the present. The present is the only thing that exposes the lie. In this silence, something strange appears. Not joy, not purpose, something thinner, colder, a clarity without comfort. Like waking up in a room with no furniture. Like stepping outside to find the world has not ended, only lost its voice. There is no applause here, no gold medal for awakening, only space and the soft, unnerving truth that you no longer need to chase anything. But you will chase again. The will is patient. It waits in your favorite colors. It waits in old songs. It waits in the praise of others. And when you are tired or lonely or nostalgic, it will return. It will promise. It will seduce. It will say, just this once. Just one more time. And you might believe it. That is not weakness. That is being human. But something has changed. Now, you know the shape of the cage. You know its voice. You've seen the trap dressed in velvet. And even if you fall for it again, part of you will remain awake, watching, unfooled, cold-eyed, waiting for the moment when the curtain drops and the ache reveals itself again. And that part of you, that part cannot be touched. It does not seek. It does not crave. It only sees. This seeing is not liberation. It is not happiness. It is not transcendence. It is quiet. It is slow. It is honest. It is the beginning of something that has no name, not peace, not freedom, something smaller, more bitter, more true, a life stripped of fiction, a self that no longer negotiates with ghosts, a silence that feels less like death and more like home. Because once you have seen the cage for what it is, you can never go fully back inside. You may sit down. You may rest your head against the bars, but you will never again mistake them for sky. Somewhere, a child stops chasing the butterfly and stares at the ground where it vanished. Somewhere, a prayer is whispered not to be answered, but to hear the echo. Somewhere, a man returns to the room he always feared and finds it unchanged. You turn the key, expecting a door, but find only a mirror. Your reflection is older now, but the eyes are the same, still searching for something that cannot be held. You close your hand around nothing, and this time you do not curse it. The feast is over, the guests are gone. The candle flickers not as a promise, but as a question. What remains when you no longer want? The silence does not answer, it only stays.